Hey Boo, welcome and welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. In my recent videos, a lot of the comments have focused on I'm trying all these things. There's a lot of different techniques out there. The languaging says a lot of different things for each one, and I'm trying them, but it always comes back to the same thing that I'm trying it for a while, and then I look outside. I still don't have my desire. I get anxious. I start to doubt. I'm going to get it. I'm fearful about it, and I'm back to where I started. And I see this coming up for you when essentially when you're falling out of your state. How do you get back into your state? What's going to happen if I'm not in my state? And I totally get it. It's scary. It feels isolating. It feels confusing. It brings up good old anxiety. And that is something that all comes under the heading of one thing: resistance. It's when your resistances to fully knowing who you are, I am God, and to understanding that imagining you have it is already having it, because God has already given it to you. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's already inside you. So no amount of looking externally can make your desire materialize or manifest or come into actual form, come alive in your life, however you want to see it. It's not going to appear. And this is where a lot of your inner conflicts are coming from. I'm doing all the things and I'm still not getting any results, and I can't stay in my state. So this is the issue that you have. But resistance can be when those resistances come up, and really what's deflating and defeating for you is really that your own inner resistance to knowing you can have your desire, knowing you're worthy of it, knowing you're deserving of it, knowing that your nature is love. It comes from this from really what's like a lack of love for yourself. If the love isn't there for yourself, it's impossible for you to fully give yourself as God, for God to give you what you want. And it's more than simply wanting, because wanting implies lacking. But when you have it, you are it, and you have it, you are in that state of not lacking anything, of that state of perfect wholeness that was already there, but it's honoring and knowing that you have it, and that you are in that state of perfect wholeness. And that goes back to that wonderful ancient Hindu mantra or prayer that I did a video about some time ago, that goes, this is perfect, that is perfect. If you take the perfect away from the perfect remains. And that's because it's always perfect from the get-go. And that in God all things are perfect. Even what you feel is imperfect about yourself is automatically still perfect. So nothing is lacking in God. If you take the perfect from the perfect, it would sound like, well, nothing's left, but it's still perfect. It's always what's left is perfect. God doesn't lack anything. If anything, God lacks lack. There is no such thing to God as lack of any kind. It's always some kind of fullness, wholeness, abundance. So let that register, let that kick in, breathe into that, feel that for yourself. And if you want to go deeper with me, there's a link to set up one-on-ones with me, and that's in the channel description, 1minutemanifesting.com/services. So consider this wonderful quote from the Buddhist nun Pema Chodron about the whole situation of change and resistance to change and stepping into your fullness and your wholeness. And she said, as human beings, we are impermanent, as everything else is. Every cell in the body is continuously changing. Thoughts and emotions rise and fall away unceasingly. When we're thinking that we're incompetent or that we're hopeless, what are we basing it on? On this fleeting moment? On yesterday's success or failure? We cling to a fixed idea of who we are, and it cripples us. Get that last line. We cling to a fixed idea of who we are, and it cripples us. And that in itself is where we place limitation And where resistance comes from, when we're hanging out in this limited thinking, in this limited idea, that's where resistance starts to show up. But it's when we can flip that script by noticing that resistance is coming up, instead of allowing resistance to defeat you or make you feel deflated and that you cannot overcome it. Instead of that, flip it around, because you have the staying power to resist it. And it's that staying power that can come up for you, that you can bring into it. Remember that you have it when you start to notice where your doubt or your anxiety or your fears and distrust are causing you to back away or back down and feel like it's hopeless. So it's instead of trying to not look. The idea is, I'm not looking out there because I don't have it. Well, you need to look inside. It's making that, what do I always say, the U-turn, Y-O-U-turn, back into yourself to know you have it in your oneness in God, so that God can move through you to bring it into your reality. That, in a sense, is the control of your reality, is allowing God to bring it to you. But if any amount, any particle, any molecule of doubt, any little infinitesimal amount of doubt is going to subvert and overturn what you want. Yes, you can have doubt to an extent, and you can say, I manifested it anyway. And that has happened. I didn't think it was possible, but I have it. And yes, however, if your prevailing state is one of having it, and something can show up in a way you never expected. But when that happens, like say a big lottery win, chances are most of the big lottery winners don't have the money after a short time, because they allowed their doubts of deservingness caused them to lose a lot of that money. So you want to stay anchored, and that is where staying power comes from. It's what came to mind for me as I was planning this video is what in dining out is called, in dining is called pièce de résistance. It's that French term which means the main part, the wow part of a meal. It's the main course. And why is that important? Because I was looking at what's the history of pièce de résistance. I would think of it, we often think of it as that little finishing touch, that little cherry on top of the sundae makes it extra special and completes it. But really, it's the central part. This is the traditional meaning of pièce de résistance. It's the central part of the meal, where that's when food, instead of all coming out as one great big banquet, a buffet, one great big smorgasbord where everything was out, it was where meals were divided into courses, a little appetizer to whet your appetite. So that could be like what you're imagining. Then the main course came out, and it was the most substantial, nourishing, satisfying part of the meal. The main dish with all the sides, everything solid, what we think of as solid food. And why is that relating to manifesting your desires? Because it's the power, the staying power of having it, of giving it that can give you stamina. It's like resistance exercise at the gym. If you're doing resistance exercise, you're using dumbbells, or you're using kettlebells, or those resistance bands. If you've ever taken, I used to teach classes with resistance bands, and those can be pretty amazing because they're working also with resistance and your body weight. Now, in exercise, what do those do? They build muscle. It gives definition, gives those swole muscles. It gives you stamina. So it's the same thing. It gives you stamina is staying power. It's the same thing. So again, that comes up, staying power, resistance for staying power. So when resistance comes up, that fixed idea we have of ourselves that's limiting, the one with the sad, tragic backstory of what our family was, our family history, maybe that the family was always struggling and there was a lot of difficulty. No, you can let go of that. You have the staying power to let go of that fixed idea of yourself and withstand whatever appearing adversity arises. And that's also endurance as part of that. When something appears stressful, I mean, if you think of a marathon, you have endurance to run the course. You have the stamina, the staying power that gives you drive and energy and motivation. So all of these are the same qualities that can keep you in your state, that can keep you from falling out of your state. So yes, the resistance that shows up when we want something and we're afraid it's not going to come, or we can't find the trust to trust God. And God's like, why aren't they trusting? I already got the message. You know, God hears you right away and says, you got it. And then all these other things we use to get in our way. The backstory, the feeling of it's hopeless, I'm not going to get this yet again, it's going to slip through my fingers. But that's not the true you. The true you is invincible, unstoppable. The true you has the desire, that knows it will come, it must come, because it's what you want and what you know you have. So there is no lack, there is no separation, there is no distrust. It's all there for you to say, yes, I have this. This is in my personal reality. So for it to come from the invisible, the unseen, to the visible, to come alive in your life, it takes that staying power. So when you start to notice that you're faltering, the staying power isn't staying, is when you can say, thank you for showing me that. Because what's happening is it's the you with the backstory that sees it can't hold on anymore. It's being kind of pushed away now. It's not needed anymore. Thank you, I don't need you. Thank you for telling me that then. I don't need you now. I'm bigger than that. I'm bigger than you. And it's fighting for its life. And that's where that feeling of fighting against yourself comes up. But that's why in the Bible it says a house divided against itself cannot stand. So in order for you to have that staying power, is to let go of that old idea of yourself. And that truly is changing states. So it's when it keeps trying to pull you out of being fully in your state. Now you're going to say, well, how do I do this? How do I do this? The how questions kind of have piled up. And I see that in the comments, that I'll be talking about something like this and somebody will comment, but how? It's not a how question. I mean, yes, that's where Bashar might tell someone that's in their instruction manual and go to your highest excitement. But if you never feel that excited about anything, it's not that kind of excitement. It could be no more exciting than to go out with a bestie for a coffee. If that's the motivational experience that gets you excited enough to go out your door and go and have a conversation with someone over a yummy coffee, that's great. That's your excitement. And it might lead to another thing that's even more exciting. So it's allowing that to show up in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be a trip on your private jet. It can be something that just is going to explore something. It's going to just move you to experience another aspect of yourself. And that can lead to the next and to the next, whatever that is for you. But it takes the idea is when you're coming from something like that, you stop looking at things from that negative or lacking viewpoint. Even if they're small things, even if what's exciting is making a doodle on a little scrap of paper every day, that can be great too. If it's something that just opens your mind. Because again, what Pema Chodron said right at the end, we cling to a fixed idea of ourselves and it cripples us. But yet underneath that, you are vibrant, you are whole, you are complete in every way. You are God. And you have the kingdom, that the kingdom of heaven, that is consciousness. You have it. You have that wisdom. You have that. You are the observer of all the things moving through, and that is your staying power, is that witness consciousness. Now I'm introducing this right here. Stick with me. If you stuck with me this far, stick with me to the end here, because that is seeing you through everything. It's the observer in you. It is your pure consciousness. And that is the truth of who you are. You are that witness. You are that observer. So observe yourself having all of it, having what you want, being who you want to be, to the most, to the utmost, to the max. And if you feel yourself coming out of your state, being thrown, I mean, it happened to Neville Goddard. Something could disrupt his state and he could get thrown out of his state. But he noticed it and he got back into it, and you can do the same thing. He said, okay, thank you. I see the resistance coming up. I see the doubt arising. I see the distrust arising, the uncertainty arising, all the usual suspects. And I can choose also to ignore all that in the face of that, to turn away from it. Just like Abdullah, Neville's mentor and teacher for about 5 years, had turned his back on Neville when Neville wanted to go third class passage to Barbados. He said, you have gone first class. And then he slammed the door. So that's the kind of metaphor for not paying attention to what your senses are telling you. Your senses want to keep reporting the same old limited idea, because the mind is limited, but you are unlimited. You are unlimited, even in the face of resistance. You are the pièce de résistance, the staying power. That is your greatest innermost divinity, your staying power. And that is where you bring your desire into your reality through your real personality. It's the end of the fight between you might say, the mask you were wearing, or that other person that believed themselves to be limited, and who you truly are. Love you so much, Boo. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching, subscribing, liking, and sharing. And I will see you in the next video.